For your edification and hopefully for your listening pleasure, Baker Street West and the Baker Street Players proudly present The Misadventure of the Disobliging Cadaver by Vince Stadon. But before we begin said adventure, a word from our sponsor.
Are you a collector, a traveler, an explorer? Then bring your adventuring spirit to Stewart's Scientifics, a shop of curiosities, antiquities, and marvels of the natural world. You'll discover decorative items to enhance your library, parlor, or sitting room that your family will enjoy and your visitors will admire and covet. Go at once if convenient. If inconvenient, go all the same to Baker Street West, a Victorian London neighborhood straight out of the tales of Sherlock Holmes, located in historic Jackson, California. Open weekends at Baker Street West, where the game is always afoot.
Irene Adler is a woman of many talents, including disguise. But did you know that she has a shop in Baker Street West? Where else would you go to look for the final piece to finish your ensemble? Jewelry to bedeck a fair neck? Vest cut in the latest fashion? A deerstalker to aid a hunt over the moors? Victorian attire, accessories, hats, and steampunk fashions await those with discerning taste at Adler's Emporium, the latest name in high fashion and frivolity. Visit Adler's Emporium at Baker Street West, a Victorian London neighborhood straight from the tales of Sherlock Holmes, located in historic Jackson, California. Open weekends, Baker Street West, where the game is always afoot.
If you enjoy Baker Street West podcasts, please do consider making a donation right here on the Baker Street West website. Baker Street West is a non-profit arts organization offering performing arts, educational opportunities, and lively experiences to foster interest in Victorian culture and the literature of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and others of the period. Your support helps us ensure we can keep doing what we do, to keep the game afoot at Baker Street West. Just scroll down to the bottom of the Baker Street West homepage and click the donate button. And thank you.
On a foggy night in the late spring of 1895, a killer stalks the streets of London. A criminal mastermind hatches a diabolical plan, and a body snatcher finds himself struggling with a most uncooperative corpse. As Mr. Sherlock Holmes races against time to solve the case, a face from the past emerges from the shadows. Has the great detective finally met his match? Only one man knows the answer, Dr. John H. Watson. Oh, but he has other preoccupations, and besides, he hasn't eaten breakfast.
Not here, Professor Moriarty. Been waiting all morning. Not a peep. Likely he's too scared to show his face.
Shh! Quiet now. I have 100 guineas on ill repute, and she's a length ahead of the field. A wonderful horse, Mr. Dial. A quite exceptional animal. I do hope you've a shilling or two on her.
I'm not a gambler, Professor.
Neither am I, Mr. Dial. Luck is for fools. I only stake my money on a sure thing.
The Queen Anne Stakes is ill repute. Second, Cream of Scotland Yard. Third, Son of Silver Blaze.
You see, there was never any doubt. And, once again, I find myself ahead of Scotland Yard. So, Mr. Dial, Slater hasn't shown. I suspected he wouldn't. This is an opportunity, Mr. Dial, for you to once again demonstrate to me your remarkable talents. I've never met anybody who relishes the act of killing as much as you do. Spread the word. Let Ned Slater know that the sword of Damocles hangs over his head. Instill fear into his wretched heart. And then, when he is suffering his night terrors, drop the sword on his head.
I shall see to it, Professor.
And, Mr. Dial, if you ever say my name again out loud, I shall have you fed to the horses in tiny, tiny little morsels, ground up in their oats. And now I must collect my winnings.
I ain't, Bess. Got a thirst on me.
I reckon you always get a thirsty gullet, Ned Slater. But I want to see your pennies first.
Here, woman. For last of it. Enough to sweeten my throat, I reckon.
Oh, surprised to see you show your face in here, truth be told. Not after what I've heard.
What do you mean?
Oh, whispers. Rumours. Someone wants you dead, Ned Slater. Fella by the name of Dial, I heard.
Dial?
As I said, whispers, rumours. Well, Ned Slater, you've gone the colour of snow. Really now, big strong fella like you. Oh, well, good riddance to ya.
Over here!
Oh, there you are, my dear. Such a beautiful daughter. You really shouldn't have gone to the trouble of meeting me, my dear. I'm quite capable, and you must have so many things to occupy your time.
Nonsense. I always have time to greet my father and welcome him home to London. You must be tired and hungry from the journey.
Good Lord!
Father, what is it?
That man! He looks. His face.
Man? What man?
He's gone. But he was there on the platform staring at me. And he looked. Oh, it doesn't matter, my dear. As you said, I'm tired and hungry and probably delusional after the dull bookkeepers' conference I suffered through these past 2 days.
We shall hail you a handsome cab and go straight home, Father. You have had quite enough excitement, I think.
Delicious, my dear. I do declare that you are a finer cook than your mother. God rest her soul.
You say that after every meal I cook for you.
I say it because it's true. We can afford the services of a live-in cook, you know.
But I love to cook.
I know it, my dear. And you love looking out the window. Has anything caught your interest?
I thought I saw a man standing across the street looking up at the house, but if he was ever there, he is gone now.
Oh, it is 7:10, and I'm late for my walk.
Must you walk tonight? You've only been home for a few hours.
Yes, my dear, I must. Exercise sharpens the mind. Now my coat. someone following me?
Dangerous business, walking at night.
Who are you? Were you at the station? Are you following me? Come out from the shadows and show your face.
You want to see my face?
My God! You look...
Yes. Take a good look. Be the last thing you see.
Stay back! Get your hands off me!
It'll be easy if you don't struggle, see? Don't want you dead, not just yet. Not just yet. Just breathe in through the cloth, nice and easy. Like deep breaths. Deep breaths. Let the chloroform do its job. That's it. That's it.
You there! Stop what you're doing!
Oh, damn it, just my luck. The peelers. Gonna have to let you go, my friend. But I'll be back for you.
Hey, come back here! He'll not get far. Sir, are you all right, sir? Blood. Somebody fetch a doctor! I think this man is dying. Either that or he's going to have one hell of a headache.
The early summer of 1895 saw Mr. Sherlock Holmes in the rudest of health, and at the peak of his powers. The detective seemed to be investigating dozens of cases simultaneously, and our shared rooms at Baker Street were a hubbub of frenetic activity. Almost every hour, a flurry of telegrams would arrive, and Holmes would read each one and then immediately concoct a cryptic reply. For instance, a telegram might read, "It rained heavily on the night of the 15th," and Holmes would reply,
Murder weapon is an umbrella stand. Arrest butler.
or a missive might bafflingly state, "The body has a tattoo on left arm," and Holmes would immediately respond,
Suspect hiding in Limehouse Laundry House. Or I'm a Chinaman.
The significance of these incidents remains a mystery to me. Nonetheless, it was all of great interest and expediency to Scotland Yard, for London's finest were habitually to be found taking notes, counsel, and withering sarcasm from Mr. Sherlock Holmes. On more than a few occasions, I would venture that there were greater numbers of vexed policemen coming to and from Baker Street than there were at New Scotland Yard. In addition to the unceasing traffic of telegrams and policemen, there were, at this busiest of times, scores of desperate clients calling upon Sherlock Holmes at all hours of the day and night, hoping to engage his services as a consulting detective. Holmes's racing engine of a mind was torn in hundreds of different directions, piecing together puzzles of all shapes and sizes. Naturally, he considered his time to be exceedingly precious, and he insisted he would only take on cases that were of singular interest to him. Such as a case presented to him one bright and fine July morning.
Come in, Mrs. Hudson. Before you ask, Watson, I knew Mrs. Hudson was at the door before she knocked, because I've attuned my hearing to identify her footsteps on the stairs.
I wasn't going to ask, Holmes.
Mr. Holmes, there's a...
Send the young lady in, Mrs. Hudson.
I was about to say, there's a young lady here to see you. But you're far too clever to even allow me to speak. I don't know why I bother. I really
Thank you,
can't...
Mrs. Hudson. Oh, and the telegram you're about to tell me that I have just this moment received. Would you be kind enough to send a reply? My response is simple. His head is far too big for a hat that size.
Well, now, you would know all about heads being far too big, now, wouldn't you, Mr. Holmes? I'll send the young lady in to see you.
You seem to have annoyed Mrs. Hudson again, Holmes.
I fear so, Watson. Which means
No breakfast.
Consider it a blessing, Watson. Now, Watson, the stopwatch.
Very well, Holmes. You may proceed, Holmes.
Excellent. Let us see if we can race through this consultation in record time. Come in.
Well, Sergeant, what have you got for me?
A body, Inspector Lestrade, sir.
Now, this is a morgue, Sergeant. Of course there's a body.
Oh, no, sir. I mean, there's been a murder, sir. That's the first body, sir. There are the other 2 bodies.
Do you mean there have been 3 murders, Sergeant?
Oh, not exactly, sir. That is, I don't think so, sir, but...
You'd better show me, Sergeant.
Yes, sir. Through here.
Good morning. Do I have the honor of addressing Mr. Sherlock Holmes, consulting detective?
I am Sherlock Holmes. This is my friend and colleague, Dr. Watson. And you are a recently bereaved bookkeeper's secretary. You lived in London, near to Victoria Station. You enjoy cooking. You own a dog. You are left-handed, nearsighted. And you are in a romantic relationship with a man of German or Scandinavian descent who is in need of a visit to the barber shop. Do please sit down.
You are correct in every instance, Mr. Holmes. Aside from the gender of the person that I'm romantically attached to.
Ah, the long blonde hair on your shoulder. I naturally suspected a fair-haired man, but I concede that a woman would have been a more imaginative guess. Watson, cross your legs.
Mr. Holmes, you are the
only man in England who can help you. Yes. I know all that. Now, let me have a brief account of what has befallen you.
Very well, Mr. Holmes. My name is Victoria Kingsley, and I am the only child of Jane and Charles...
Please try to be more succinct, Miss Kingsley. There really is no need for lengthy biographical detail. Pray, simply explain to me the nature of the problem.
I shall try, Mr. Holmes. My father, Charles Kingsley, was a practical man, not given to flights of fantasy or delusions, and yet...
A touching portrait of your father, but this is not what I've asked you for. Please try again, succinctly.
Last night, after my father finished eating the meal I had prepared for him...
More succinctly, please.
At some point during my father's after-dinner walk...
Cut to the chase.
My father was murdered!
More specific.
A man attacked him on the street.
Which street?
Francis Street.
At what time?
A little after 8.
Cause of death?
Blow to the back of the head.
From fall or a weapon?
From a fall.
Robbery?
No.
Witnesses?
Dual police constables saw off the assailant.
Did your father have enemies?
No, but... But we were followed home from the train station.
Victoria?
Sherlock?
No, I mean Victoria Station.
Yes.
Any other singular points of interest?
Traces of chloroform.
Around the mouth?
Yes.
I'll take the case.
Your race?
Reasonable.
Define reasonable.
Think of a number, divide it by 2.
I thought of the number 1.
Guineas?
Shillings. When will you have some news for me?
Call on me at 8 tonight.
7. Goodbye, Mr. Holmes. Dr. Watson.
Goodbye, Miss Kingsley. Time, Watson?
4 minutes, 16 seconds. Holmes, you're slipping.
Ha! What a remarkable young lady. Now, Watson, would you care to accompany me?
Certainly, Holmes. Where are we going?
To the morgue, Watson. To the morgue to see the corpse of Charles Kingsley.
Sherlock Holmes once said of Inspector George Lestrade, "He is the best of professionals, I think." For Holmes, this was the height of flattery. Though if Holmes knew the truth about Lestrade, he would have been positively effusive with praise for the man, because the legitimacy of the matter was that Inspector Lestrade, blessed with a keen eye, a sharp mind, and a cutting wit, was quite simply an excellent detective. If he could not be classed to be on par with Mr. Sherlock Holmes, then he was most certainly only a few strokes behind in his game. Seldom was Mr. Sherlock Holmes allowed even a glimpse of Lestrade's brightness, for the inspector chose to keep his talents well hidden from the consulting detective, for reasons I shall endeavour to make apparent.
Here's the first body. I think he's been murdered, sir.
Yes, that's the conclusion I have reached too, Sergeant Cribb. Yeah, the big bullet hole in the head is a subtle clue. That body number one. Where are the other two?
Oh, through here, sir.
Two. And three. Well, I can't follow your arithmetic, Sergeant.
This case looks to be a bit of a puzzler, sir. Would you like me to send a telegram to Mr. Sherlock Holmes? He'd have the case sorted out in no time at all.
Yeah, Sergeant, this case may seem murkier to you than the bottom of the Thames, but to me, it's as clear as the sparkling waters of Reichenbach Falls, in the icy depths of which I sincerely wish Mr. Sherlock Holmes would have had the good grace to perish in.
You mean you know what happened, Inspector?
Well, I think I can hazard a guess, Sergeant. Like the slow process of your mind, let's work backwards. Body number one, bullet hole in the head. The victim is Peterson, police surgeon. Working late in the night, he hears an intruder. Makes to investigate, has a nasty surprise waiting for him. The intruder had broken into the morgue and wished to remove body number two. Body number two has been stored here since yesterday morning. His name is Clive Kingston, and he was a strong man employed by Zora's Circus of Delights. The strong man was in a tempestuous relationship with Madame Zora herself. Now, he was cruel to her, and so she poisoned him. And she is behind bars. He ended up in the morgue.
Upon my soul. What about the third body, Inspector?
Yeah, turn him over, Sergeant, so that you can see his face.
Yes, sir. Oh, good heavens, it can't be. It's the same man.
Not entirely the same man, Sergeant Cribb. Body number three is Claude Kingston, identical twin to brother of Clive. Claude was also a strong man in Madame Zora's circus. He too was in a tempestuous relationship with her, and he was also poisoned. Our intruder was intending to steal the body of Clive Kingston. For what purpose, I can't even guess. Perhaps he's a bit of a Burke in search of an heir. Whatever the matter, he maneuvered the body off the slab and was dragging it along the floor when he must have somehow noticed that he had taken the wrong corpse. So he dropped the body of Claude Kingston and returned to find Clive Kingston. That was when the poor police surgeon rushed into the room to see what on earth was occurring, caught our body snatcher in flagrante delicto, and received a bullet for his troubles. Poor fellow, our intruder, realizing he had made a complete mess of things, fled the corpus delicti. Go and see who that is, Cribb, and kindly ask him to stop hammering on the door and making enough noise to wake the dead.
Yes, sir.
Some years ago, just after Sherlock Holmes and Inspector Lestrade first crossed paths, the inspector married a most remarkable woman. Tragically, the woman fell into a prolonged illness and became dependent on morphine. a drug that was most difficult for an honest man to acquire in large quantities. In desperation, Lestrade turned to me for help, and I found it impossible to deny him or his wife. For the long years until her death, I supplied Mrs. Lestrade with the relief she needed to make her life bearable. This arrangement was kept secret from Sherlock Holmes for 2 reasons. The first reason was that the woman Lestrade took as his wife was well known and, indeed, admired by Sherlock Holmes. She was, in fact, referred to by Holmes as the woman. Her name was Irene Adler. As for the second reason...
Good morning, Inspector Lestrade. I see you're collecting a body of evidence for a new case.
Very droll, Mr. Holmes. Good morning, Dr. Watson.
Good morning, Lestrade. I see 3 bodies on the floor. What on earth has happened here?
Now, that's the very question I have been puzzling over, Dr. Watson. It's got me well and truly flummoxed, and no mistake, I can't make head nor tail of it. Only a keener brain than mine could see clear what has happened, I reckon. Say, Mr. Holmes, I wonder if you'd be kind enough to put your mind to the problem. You're sure to see through all this, whereas I have to concede that it has comprehensively defeated my meager faculties.
I am here on an altogether different matter, Lestrade, but I shall be glad to put you straight on a few things that have predictably eluded you. It is an elementary series of events that is laid out before you. The first victim is a man called Edward Peterson, police surgeon. Working late at night, he heard an intruder and made to investigate. The intruder had broken into the morgue and wished to remove a body. This cadaver had been stored here since yesterday morning. His name is Clive Kingston, and he was a strongman employed by Zora's Circus of Delights.
The second reason why Inspector Lestrade disguised his natural abilities as a detective, whilst in the company of Sherlock Holmes, was
to her,
because I asked him
she
to.
Poisoned him.
It was the only thing I requested of him in return for supplying the medication that eased his wife's suffering. If Holmes had one failing as a human being... What am I saying? Holmes had many failings as a human being. Indeed, so abundant were his faults in that fundamental department that he sometimes barely qualified to be human at all. The man had not even noticed that I had celebrated my birthday that very day, even though we had shared rooms together for years. But anyway, Holmes's principal failing was his complete lack of humility. The man had an ego the size of the moon, and he found it inconceivable that there was another detective anywhere who could match him. If Holmes was ever to discover that there was quite brilliant rival detective working professionally in London, the thought was not a happy one. Therefore, to preserve Holmes's fragile ego, Lestrade had played the fool whenever he was in the company of the great detective, and it was a role he played superbly.
Brilliant, Mr. Holmes. Simply brilliant. You're a dazzlingly intelligent man, if I may say so. And you put us poor, stupid, blind, and bumbling half-wit policemen to shame.
Though he sometimes overdid it.
It was elementary, Lestrade. Now, I've come here to examine the cadaver of Charles Kingsley. If you would be so kind to lead Dr. Watson and myself to it.
Charles Kingsley? The murder on Francis Street last night. Blow to the back of the head. Yes, I recall the fellow. He's right there, Mr. Holmes. Prepared for autopsy.
Ah, yes. Good Lord, his face. All becomes clear to me now, yes? Watson.
Holmes?
Fancy a pint? Watson, a few words of caution and advice before we set foot inside this establishment.
There's no need, Holmes. I'm a man of the world, and I've visited places like these before. In fact...
Trust me, Doctor, you have never been inside a place like the Jolly Nobbing Public House before. It is a hellish pit of squalor and indecency. The men are violent, drunken criminals, and the young women are wanton harlots, who eagerly satisfy any man's base desires for a few pennies.
Holmes?
Let me do all the talking, Watson. Stand beside me and be ready with your revolver, should there be a call for you to use it. You do have your revolver with you, I trust?
I carry my revolver with me at all times when I'm in your company, Holmes. Just in case I'm tempted.
Good. Now remember what I said. Keep a low profile. Keep close, Watson.
Dr. Watson! Oh, it's the adorable, sexy Dr. Watson!
So it is. I'd recognize that mustache anywhere. What you doing, Doc? Come here, give us a kiss.
Oh, big boy John Watson, the best lover in London town. Don't never see you here in the daylight hours. Feeling frisky, Doc?
He wants all three of us at once, I reckon. Just like last time.
Is that revolver in your pocket?
I think you may have mistaken me for someone else, ladies. Let us go somewhere quiet to discuss this matter whilst my friend here attends to his business. I'll be back soon, Holmes. Bye.
Good old Watson. Happy birthday, old friend. I'm looking for Bess, the landlady.
I'm Bess.
Good afternoon, Bess. I am Sherlock Holmes.
Oh, I know who you are. Seen you in here a few times. Dressed shabbily. Stupid fake nose. Daft whiskers. Trying to make yourself blend in. Asking questions in a silly voice.
On occasion, it has been necessary for me to adopt a fictional persona and change my appearance with theatrical effects.
Oh, you don't say. And what persona are you adopting now? Oh, that big nose is the silliest one I've seen you in yet.
I'm not in disguise, madam. I need information, and I'm prepared to pay well for it.
How well?
If you tell me what I wish to know, I will pay you 5 shillings.
10.
7.
8.
Done.
And what do you want to know?
Baker Street, please, cabby.
Did you get what you were after, Holmes?
Yes, Watson. For a price, Bess the landlady was most forthcoming. How about you, old friend?
I got what I was after too, Holmes. We returned to Baker Street in good humor, for the day had been productive for the both of us. I had many questions concerning the case, but when I put them to Holmes, the detective was frustratingly evasive.
My dear Watson, you know my methods. I never reveal information until I'm in possession of all the facts. Now, dear fellow, I see that I have 16 telegrams which require my immediate attention, and you must be exceptionally curious to discover what's in the large basket over there.
Large basket? Where, Holmes?
You see, but you do not observe, Watson. In the corner of the room, underneath the case files from 1875 to 1879, is a very large wicker basket adorned with a pretty red bow and addressed to Dr. Watson.
Good Lord, so there is! I wonder what is in the thing.
Open it, Watson. Open it.
Very well. Here we are. This ribbon is well tied. It's a puppy!
It is indeed. A fine young scamp.
It's a puppy!
There's a note here.
It's a cute little adorable puppy.
It's from your fiancée, Miss Violet Spedding. Happy birthday, my darling John. Love from Violet.
It's a puppy with fluffy puppy ears and the cutest, wettest little puppy nose. Oochie coochie coo. Aww, who's the cutest little puppy den? Who's a beautiful, bouncy little ball of fun? Dinner? You are. Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Who's a sweet little fellow then? Tick, 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 tick. You're a cute little puppy wuppy. Yes, you are. Oh, yes, you are.
Good evening, gentlemen. I hope I'm not interrupting anything.
Miss Kingsley, is it 7 o'clock?
It is.
Splendid. Now about your case. Watson and I have been making excellent progress. Is that not so, Watson?
Cute little fuzzy wuzzy. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oochie coochie coo.
Watson!
Hello, Mrs. Kingsley. We have been making excellent progress on the case.
I'm most gratified to hear it, Mr. Holmes. Do you know the identity of the ruffian who so cruelly took my father's life?
I do.
Then pray tell, why are you not immediately sending for the police so that this evil man may be arrested and sent on his way to the gallows?
Because the man is in hiding. However, I do know where he will be later tonight. Watson and I shall lay in wait for him and apprehend the scoundrel the moment he steps out of concealment.
I wish to be there when you catch this fiend, Mr. Holmes.
I'm afraid I cannot allow that, Miss Kingsley. It is too dangerous.
I do not see how you can possibly prevent me from being there, Mr. Holmes.
You are a woman of remarkable fortitude and strength of will, Victoria Kingsley. Very well. You may accompany Dr. Watson and me on our adventure. We shall leave here a little after 11 and be in position by midnight.
Then we have 4 hours to wait.
Indeed.
How shall we pass the time?
Who's this cheeky little chappy then, eh? Does doggy want a bone? Does the little doggy want a bone?
Sergeant Cribb, what are you eating?
An apple, sir. Wife says I need to eat more, sir. Reckons I'm wasting away to nothing, she does.
Oh, perish the thought. Do you think you might eat something that makes a little less noise, Sergeant? We are, after all, keeping quiet watch on a location that is, in all likelihood, about to be broken into by a man who is wanted for murder.
Sorry, sir. You reckon this fella's gonna nobble another stiff, sir?
I wouldn't put it quite as colorfully as that, Cribb, but yes, I think there's an excellent chance that the culprit will return to the scene of the crime tonight. That is, if you don't alert him to our presence here, Sergeant.
Sorry, sir. Forgot. Inspector Lestrade, sir. There's 3 people outside the morgue, sir. Looking mightily suspicious. Should we nab them, sir?
No, Sergeant. Let me see. That is Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson, with a young lady. I wonder what they are up to.
This is a first-class, up-to-date burgling kit with nickel-plated jemmy, diamond-tipped glass cutters, adaptable keys, and every modern improvement which the march of civilization demands.
Impressive. The same kit you used to break into the house belonging to Charles Augustus Milverton, if I'm not mistaken.
Mr. Holmes, this is the city police morgue. Why on earth are you intending to gain a legal entry to such a place?
Because the man who murdered your father will soon be here. Now, please, be quiet whilst I pick the lock. It is a delicate operation that requires concentration and steady hands. I think I have... yes, voila.
Well done, Holmes.
Now, follow me and be quiet.
Sorry, Holmes. Didn't see the bucket.
Shh! This is a good place for us to conceal ourselves. We have an excellent view of the slabs in front of us where the bodies are laid out. This is where our man will make for. Watson, fetch that gas lantern from the shelf over there.
Of course, Holmes.
Good man. When the intruder makes his entrance, light the lantern.
This is a dreadful place, Mr. Holmes. So cold and strange and reeking of death.
I must warn you, Miss Kingsley, that you are very likely to be shocked by the things you see tonight.
Do you mean ghosts, Mr. Holmes?
No, Miss Kingsley. I mean that the face of the man who killed your father may be a shock to you. I do not hold with ghosts and the goblins and ghouls and the raising of the dead. It's all complete nonsense, the fantasies of feeble minds.
My God! Holmes! The shroud is rising up! The dead are rising! It's a ghost!
Nonsense! Light the lantern, Watson. Let us shed some light on this.
Yes, Holmes! There! Do you see?
Good grief! That shroud is indeed rising up. How remarkable!
The body is sitting upright. The shroud is slipping, revealing his face. Oh my, his face! Ah! It's my father!
He has risen from the dead!
Ah!
It's not your father, Miss Kingsley.
She's fainted, Holmes. The shock of seeing her father wake up from death.
It's not her father, Watson. It's a criminal named Ned Slater.
That's right. Mr. Sherlock Holmes. Come to pay your respects to the dead, have you?
You have been very clever, Slater, hiding on a slab, covering yourself with a shroud. I expected you to be hiding in the London underworld amongst your criminal friends. But here, amongst the dead, is a much better place for you to hide. And it saved you having to break in again. Clever. Very clever indeed.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. We're keeping some very clever company these days. At least I was, till I owed him money from a job I pulled.
Who are you talking about, Slater?
Oh, never you mind, Mr. Holmes. You'll find out soon enough. He's got plans for you and for Dr. Watson.
Plans? Clever company? What can it all mean? I need more data.
Idle threats, Slater. Now the game is up, and I have you covered with my service revolver. There is no escape for you.
Oh, you have your gun on me, and I have my gun on Sherlock Holmes. Let us see who's the best shot.
No, don't be a fool, man.
I'll go first, then.
Holmes, look out!
Plans for me and Watson. What fiendish mind is behind all this? Oh!
Holmes! No! You'll pay for this, Slater.
Oh, it's dangerous to make threats, Doctor. It's even more dangerous to stand next to a lit gas lantern. One shot and this whole damn place will be up in flames. See? Time for me to make my escape.
Shoulder wound. Losing blood. Got to get out of here. Can't breathe. Losing strength. I'm sorry, Holmes. Good Lord, the morgue is on fire.
Have they turned it into a crematorium, sir?
No, Sergeant. The building is burning down. Holmes, Watson, and that young lady are in there. We'll have to go get them out. Follow me, quickly. Someone's coming out. Hey, go after him, Sergeant.
Yes, sir. Oi, you there!
Damn! The bleeding police!
I'll have you, sonny. You're nicked.
Damn!
Watson! Ah! My shoulder! Watson, wake up! Watson! He's out cold. Miss Kingsley! Nothing. Have to carry them out. No time for 2 trips. Both together. One over each shoulder. Watson first. Oh, getting heavy, Watson. Good job you skipped breakfast. And now, for Victoria.
Holmes!
Lestrade! I'll take Watson. You take the young lady.
You can manage Watson with that shoulder. You're wounded.
I can manage. Watson is my friend.
Who's a coochie little puppy wuppy then? Eh? Who's a cozy little doggy?
Watson, where have you hidden my tobacco?
You mustn't smoke, Holmes. As your doctor.
Ah, here it is. Come in.
Good morning, Mr. Holmes, Dr. Watson.
Good morning, Miss Kingsley. May I ask how you are?
I have a sore throat, Dr. Watson, but otherwise I am in good health. Before I visited here, I paid a call to Inspector Lestrade at New Scotland Yard and thanked him for saving my life.
Lestrade is a good man.
Watson, where's my meerschaum pipe?
Mr. Holmes, I cannot begin to thank you for all you have done. Ned Slater is behind bars awaiting the noose, and there will be justice for my father's murder. But I must ask you one thing, Mr. Holmes. Please explain to me why my father was murdered and exactly what happened last night.
Ah, I see you have hidden it behind the cushions. It won't do, Watson. I will not be denied a pipe.
Mr. Holmes!
You seek an explanation for what has happened, Miss Kingsley. I shall be happy to oblige you. Ah, excellent. Fine blend of tobacco, this. Now then, where to begin? Yes, I think with Ned Slater, a cunning man. Slater is a thief. He was involved in countless robberies and was well known to me and to Scotland Yard. Somehow, there was a falling out between thieves. Perhaps Slater double-crossed them, or he owed them money. Whatever the case, those are dangerous people to have as
Mr.
enemies.
Holmes, I hate to interrupt this touching love affair between yourself and, well, yourself, but I have a funeral to attend. Please be good enough to explain simply and succinctly why my father was murdered.
Very well, Miss Kingsley. I shall lay before you the facts of the case as I see them.
Briefly, please.
Briefly, then. Your father was murdered by Ned Slater because both men, in likeness and in build, were identical. The Germans have a word for it.
Doppelganger. Yes, I know that. I saw the startling resemblance myself. But why did Ned Slater wish to kill a man who could have been his identical twin?
Because Slater needed a corpse that could pass for his own dead body.
For what possible reason?
To convince the ruthless and determined criminal underworld, in order to escape retribution, that Ned Slater was dead.
Retribution for what?
For double-crossing his dangerous criminal allies. Honor amongst thieves.
There is nothing honorable about Ned Slater.
A turn of phrase.
An ill-chosen one in the circumstances. How did you know that it was Ned Slater who murdered my father?
I visited the morgue to see your father's body. I saw at once the resemblance to Ned Slater and surmised the sequence of events that led to your father's death.
Surmised, you mean guessed?
I was entirely correct in every instance.
Good for you. What did you do next?
I went to the Nobbing House.
The what?
The Jolly Nobbing Public House on Whitechapel Lane.
A pub?
Amongst other things.
You were looking for Slater?
Yes, or knowledge of his whereabouts. I bribed the landlady Bess for information.
I see.
Is there anything else you wish to know?
Yes. What of the other bodies?
Inconveniencies.
More specific.
They were in the morgue on the night Slater broke in and attempted to steal your father's disobliging cadaver.
You refer to my father as a disobliging cadaver?
Another turn of phrase.
Another ill-chosen one. Slater tried to make off in the night with the wrong corpse.
Precisely.
Twice.
Yes.
Slater's an idiot.
Illiterate.
Illiterate?
Slater mistook the names Clive and Claude Kingston for Charles Kingsley.
An illiterate idiot, then. What about the third body?
Edward Peterson, police surgeon. He interrupted Slater undertaking his nefarious activities.
How did you know that Slater would be at the city morgue last night?
An intuitive deduction based on the evidence at hand.
Guesswork, in other words.
I was entirely right in every instance.
Yes, you were. Here's your fee, Mr. Holmes. I pay it gladly.
Thank you.
No, thank you, Mr. Holmes. You are a remarkable man.
And you are a remarkable woman, Miss Kingsley. I appreciate your compliment.
It is entirely deserving, Sherlock. You are quite amazing.
Yes, Holmes, you're amazing. Isn't he amazing, little doggy? Oochie coochie, little doggy. Is Mr. Holmes amazing? Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
Ain't seen you around, Constable.
Been transferred in, Sarge, from Bow Street.
What's your name, lad?
Jimmy Dial, sir. I'm on cell duty, sir.
Well, up to it, Constable Dial. Prisoner in cell 5 needs feeding.
Yes, sir.
About blooming time. Starving I am.
Hello, Ned Slater. Found you at last.
What you mean? Who are you?
My name is Dial. Perhaps you've heard of me. I see from the sweat on your brow that you have.
You don't need. I'm for the hangman's noose, so I am. There's no point.
There's every point, Mr. Slater. The professor insists that his orders are carried out in full. You do know who the professor is, don't you, Slater?
Moriarty.
Indeed. Do you know what happens, Mr. Slater, to anyone foolish enough to say the professor's name out loud? You're shaking with fear. That's excellent. Goodbye, Mr. Slater.
Our performance of The Misadventure of the Disobliging Cadaver by Vince Stadon was directed by Beth Barnard, featuring the voice talents of Brad Loffswold as Sherlock Holmes, Joe Svec as Dr. Watson, Callee Lanier as Victoria Kingsley, Brad Barnard as Inspector Lestrade, Toffer Anderson as Ned Slater, Dr. Peter Lee as Sir Charles Kingsley, Jake Guidi as Sergeant Cribb, Melinda Rosselli as Mrs. Hudson, and Beth Barnard as Bess. Our sound technician and sound editor is Roger Fugere. Foley crew was Makayla, Balash, Debra Brown, and Amanda Reis. Original music score by Dave Vasquez. Additional music by Norm and Pam Ivy of Sequoia. Perhaps you have lost something and cannot find it. Perhaps you suspect someone but have no proof. Perhaps there exists no mystery in your life, but you are in dire need of diversion. The solution awaits you at Baker Street West, a Victorian London neighborhood straight from the tales of Sherlock Holmes, located in historic Jackson, California. Bring your close friends, bring your family, and bring your problem for an entertaining consultation with the world's first consulting detective, Mr. Sherlock Holmes, and of course, Dr. John Watson. Held in Baker Street West's remarkable recreation of 221B Baker Street. Lack a problem? No worries. A problem can be created for you. The fee for consultations begins at $50 and may include Mrs. Hudson's famous tea and refreshments. Fees benefit Baker Street West, a non-profit arts organization. To arrange for your consultation, please message Mrs. Hudson at info@bakerstreetwest.com or telephone 209-223-2215. Baker Street West, where the game is always afoot.
In the words of a royal beekeeper to King Charles I, a bee is a magnificent chemist. And so, South Downs Apiary may be Mr. Holmes's favorite shop at Baker Street West. It's swarming with all things related to bees, including honey, soap, and candles. Provision your pantry at South Downs Apiary, a hive of domestic essentials and small luxuries. At Baker Street West, a Victorian London neighborhood straight from the tales of Sherlock Holmes. Located in historic Jackson, California, open weekends at Baker Street West, where the game is always afoot.